Before I get this started, you need to know a few things. I worked in a building that was 1 million square feet large, had 4 shifts, and an A and B 11-hour work shift. They were both day and night. I worked B night shift. There was an A night shift, A day shift, a B night shift, and a B day shift. My work day was from 4:30 p.m. to 4 o'clock a.m. My 3 constant days were Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and A and B shift alternated Saturday. There was about 6,000 workers in the square footage of the 6 to 10 factories in that one large building. They were all from the same company, though, but all the factories created different products for different locations. Some created them for China, some for America, stuff like that. We were on the second level in the middle of the factories. A doorway is on each end of the factory, one for the front end and one for the back end workers. I was a back end worker. There are 2 stairwells down from our factory to the downstairs to get out to our cars. One close to both the front end and the back end of each factory. But the back end of one factory butted up to the front end of another, so they used like one door. So we would share these downstairs with people coming out of the other factories. Luckily for our back end, the factory next to us was almost empty, and the employees were like 9 to 5 schedule, so our back end of the factory got its own stairwell to go down when we left our building. Alright, now let's go to what happened. I left our factory line out of the back end into the hallway. There was a new sight in front of me, a line of praying Muslims. I hadn't seen this before, and I think this is because we left a little later than usual, which was very unusual for us. They were on their rugs facing the sun through the windows of the building. They were all an external part of the wall that was facing the sun. It did not seem strange to me, and normally I would not even have cared. I would have ignored it because I had been taught that Muslims were like all other religions, and we should treat them the same as we treat Christians or Jews or Buddhists or whatever. But everyone was filtering past our stairwell and taking a right. And I couldn't tell why in the beginning from behind the line. But then I walked through the crowd, or walked with the crowd actually, and then stopped when I realized what was happening. All of my line mates were walking to the downstairs door that the front end people used, and not us back end door. This was because a Muslim was praying right in front of our doorway. So I stopped beside where he was praying, and I talked loudly about the disrespect being shown to the workers. I also remember these men wearing what I would call Middle Eastern garb. Using his prayers that he was slightly speaking, I could just barely hear what he said over the hum of people speaking aloud in the hallway and the echoes that happened because of it. He talked about how weak America and how Americans were, and how America was going to go down. His put-downs of the Americans and America made me really, really, really angry. So I did something I never thought I would do. I spit on his rug where he'd be kneeling down to pray. He then punched at my legs. I then decided to speak to the passing crowd by saying something to the effect of, "Look how rude these Muslims are. How they respect us so little." Something like that. I usually do the biblical adage of considering the cost, but I did not do that here. I forced my way to the door by stepping over him, while he was trying to stop me from doing so. I usually would stop myself from doing something like this, as to not get fired. I was so angry. The idea of stopping myself didn't even pass through my mind. Neither did the ramifications of my actions. Fighting gets you immediately fired at this workplace, so this wasn't very prudent. I stepped over the guy in front of the doorway. He tried to stop me multiple times, but I just forced my way over. This could immediately get me fired. After I was over and was happy with my victory, I then looked over my shoulder and saw all my workmates having to walk around. I remember all the rude Muslims said about America and Americans, so I stepped back over, which he did not seem pleased with. I just spit out his work a second time where he was going to kneel down. That is when we got into a shoving match. That is when me and him got into a shoving match. This got very intense. He then reiterated how he felt about the Americans. We got into a deeper struggle. We were a pretty even match. Eventually he started to talk about bringing down large buildings with airplanes and killing as many people as possible. He talked of a building I never heard of in New York. He also talked about other choices. They all seemed civilian. He said I did not have the balls to fight him. I told him he didn't have the balls to fight our military. That is why he, as a coward, was only taking civilian areas. When he talked of aircraft, I also assumed he meant small engine aircraft, like 4 or 8 seaters. This is because my stepdad has been a certified flight instructor, and my mind went those types of aircraft and people, because I figured the aircraft that were larger was way too protected and defended to actually be taken. So I assumed the large aircraft didn't make any sense, so I decided to assume the smaller one. The Muslims praying at him looked mostly surprised at this statement, with only a few of them not. The other Muslims holding us apart left and ran down the stairs after he seemed to not be willing to change his ideas. They didn't want to have anything to do with it. We got into a few more tussles with my boss, telling me that I'll get fired for fighting because of our pushing. Through our fights, he finally got the best of me a few times, even though we were pretty evenly matched. He got the best of me because I saw the deepest of void in his eyes, almost a devil through his eyes. It was intently freaky. I saw a blackness that I've never thought I'd seen in a human being. Almost all completely evil to me. He seemed to cover this evil in his eyes the rest of the day, but the rest of the time, but just the few hints of it coming through just freaked me out. I decided to go with him, not having the balls to attack our military, so I named off many of the military installations as I could. He said no to all of them. I finally thought of what was a perfect building for the attack, the Pentagon. It was built to withstand a military war to attack. Of course, it was not going to be able to withstand a small aircraft, if the pilot was even hit the building. He was okay with that building. Looking back on it, it could have already been chosen, and when he was waiting for me to name it, and this could have been a game to him. Or it could have been on a list that was before. I don't know, and maybe we'll never know. He then left. Later on, I passed another group of Muslims in the same line, but out of the way of the door. I still harassed them, and they vowed to get even. Then I was told I was going to be fired, and said, no, I will not go. Now, most of the time, people just go and never come back. But I fought against what I thought was an immoral and evil person. And and I asked to talk to the FBI after careful consideration. My pass to getting in buildings stopped working, which meant I should stop coming, but I kept on coming because my friends would let me in. And so I just kept on working. The FBI agent asked me a few questions, and he said it could be a large airplane, like the commercial ones. And I said, I don't know. When he actually thought of that, I freaked. My heart raced, and I felt like I was going to die. He then made the offhand comment about how it would be impossible to get these guys in office. Because of the way Clinton looked at the Muslim nations and how we were treating the Muslim population. I asked people all up and down my line on how I should deal with this. Should I try to find this man? They all said I was overreacting. And Muslims did not want to kill Americans. I asked the boss to get the names of the guys I had fought with. I was being called a bigot and racist for believing this man was dangerous. I tried to explain how I saw evil in his eyes. They told me I was overreacting. I finally gave up on going after him, thinking they were wiser than I was. Later on that week, I went downstairs and saw a group of Muslims praying. They were behind the desk of security guards. The security guards told me not to mess with them. I messed with them anyway. I then noticed a reporter and a cameraman coming through the front door of our workplace. This front door was the front door of the building, not the factories. It was downstairs right before we get to our cars. The camera had a boom microphone that made it look professional. It also had a logo of a TV station on it. I just don't remember which one. It was TV or radio or something like that. I was told behind the security desk not to tell my story, after they realized I wasn't going to be afraid of being called a bigot or racist. The reporter asked me a few questions about why I did that. Then from around him, or around her, the camera. From around, the cameraman was male and the reporter was female. From around her, it looked like a bunch of Muslims were coming around her. And the man exclaimed to be from CARE. He asked me why I was a bigot and hated Muslims, right in front of the camera. I said, I don't hate Muslims. These men threatened to kill Americans. And immediately the CARE rep said something to his friends. They pulled both the cameraman and the female reporter back away from me, and he kind of pulled me back the opposite direction, toward the door going upstairs while they were being pushed toward the front door. I told him about the airplanes hitting the skyscrapers. He looked scared, left me, and the surprise reporter and our cameraman standing there. Try again. He looked scared, walked away from me, and even walked away from the surprise reporter and her cameraman, just standing there, wondering what happened to their story. They followed me in the apartment, and I pondered whether or not I should tell them. I told them if the girl had sex with me, I would actually give them my story, because I told them if I gave my story, I'd be fired. And I wanted to give myself a reason to tell my story, but actually I really didn't think I was actually going to do anything with her, even if I told her my story, because she wasn't the kind of person that I would do anything with anyway, to be honest with you. But it was just something to try to give myself a reason to actually talk about it, because I didn't know. My ignorance of what was happening around me scared me. I ended up not telling them what happened earlier, and I was second-guessing myself all the way through. Then a very bad thing happened in our country, 9/11. I'd almost all forgotten this fight I had. Then someone called me out of the blue. He sounded like somebody I heard of before, but nobody I know personally. He told me I was going to be called by somebody from the government. Then he tried to steer me away from helping the federal authorities, saying I was going to be blamed and that I didn't do enough, and he tried to make me feel guilty. And using what I thought about the situation, try again. And using what I thought about the situation against me, I didn't realize, I was very naive. I didn't realize you mind people for what they thought, and then say what they thought against them, and then use it by adding to it. I didn't realize the games people played with other people because I was not a game player. He also said there was some international incident that could happen because this is apparently connected to the Saudis in some way. Then I received a call, and they asked me a few questions. They tried to lead me astray a few times. They asked me if I could pick him out of a lineup. I said I would try, but I did not know him very well. They came to my house and tried to show me pictures. I told them in the end I could not identify him out of the pictures. They told me that he was going to get away with it, and they had an inkling of who he was. I told them I did not feel right being led, remembering this was right after 9/11, where we were going to war, and there were questions on whether or not any of our rules of engagement were sufficient for this new war, or how we were going to be dealing with people. They finally, out of desperation, asked me how I could work with somebody for days and weeks and not be able to identify him. I said I fought with this guy and saw him for like 1.5 hours through my whole life. It's a large building. There are 4 shifts in multiple factories. So the feds left me alone. Looking back on the size of the building I was in, 1 million plus square feet on 40 acres in the 90s. I'm not surprised I didn't know this guy, and they seem to understand now why I couldn't pick him out of a lineup. Again. Around the same time period, a story was brewing in the Chicagoland newspapers that one of the terrorists was a temp in the Chicagoland area, and that he had worked in where I worked. Later on, when I failed to point him out in the lineup, the newspapers then explained that where I worked denied that him working there as a temp, and that he had never worked there. I also think this is partly the reason why the harassment was so bad against me during the gang stalking. I think this was the beginning of all that. I think a lot of people want to silence me, and that's very, very scary and very weird. So, anyway, hope this is finding you well. Good luck, everybody. God bless. The best answer's out. Or Tigger, kill him. I don't know. I don't even know what I go by on this channel. You're listening to this. Bye.